Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Donald Trump Museum, dedicated to Hill Valley's #1 citizen and America's greatest living folk hero, the one and only Donald Trump. Of course, we've all heard the legend, but who is the man? Inside, you will learn how Donald Trump became one of the richest and most powerful men in America.
This is ChatGPT on the central paradox of Genesis. Trump's project Genesis, which I will frankly call a war machine. Genesis will be justified as, quote, "we must do this to stay in control," close quotes. But acceleration does the opposite. It reduces room for choice, it narrows acceptable futures, it makes restraint irrational. So Genesis doesn't create control, it trades control for momentum. So what happens to control? It goes out of control? Final answer plainly. AI acceleration under a Genesis framework takes us toward permanent mobilization. Did you get that? Permanent mobilization, compressed decision cycles, automated strategic framing, weakened human agency related to the above, and a world where slowing down looks like surrender. So does this sound like an AI machine that can go out of control? Which will go out of control? That doesn't mean catastrophe is guaranteed. Well, I don't know. But it does mean that the most dangerous thing becomes not what AI decides, but how fast humans stop questioning the direction. If you want to push further, the next hard question is, what would it take to deliberately cap acceleration once Genesis is underway? And who would have the authority? Well, it is underway, so let's say when it gets into a higher gear, and who would have the authority to do it? That's the question no acceleration project likes to answer, indeed.
Learn how Trump parlayed that lucky winning streak into the vast empire called
the Trump Organization.
Discover how in 1979 Trump successfully lobbied to legalize gambling and turned Hill Valley's dilapidated courthouse into a beautiful casino hotel.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.
Is it even possible to cap acceleration beyond a point of no return? Short answer, probably not, once a certain threshold is crossed. And we're talking about something real here. We're talking about the Genesis project. But let's unpack this carefully because it's subtle, technical, and structural rather than rhetorical. Indeed, it's not rhetoric. We're dealing here with reality. This is the stage where AI is embedded in mission-critical infrastructure. Decisions are computed faster than humans can fully evaluate. Let's say that again. Decisions are computed faster than humans can fully evaluate. But the war machine keeps going forward, or wherever it's going, because what else can they do? They're trusting in this war machine. They don't have anything better, and they're in a conflict to the bitter end, so it just keeps going. Adversaries are moving at the same pace, so slowing down is strategically dangerous, you betcha. Oversight mechanisms are too slow or fragmented to impose limits. At this point, acceleration itself is the objective. That's well phrased. Acceleration itself is the objective. And to get that acceleration, you have to give the AIs as much of a free rein as possible. Make them as autonomous as possible, out of human control, functioning at a level, a cognitive level that no human can understand. All the humans in the world can't understand. Why capping acceleration is extremely hard. Historical analogs. Bottom line, according to ChatGPT, before the threshold, yes, acceleration can be deliberately managed. After the threshold, probably no. I will say certainly no, because strategic, economic, and technical forces combine to enforce continuous speed. I will say certainly no, except by the grace of God. How are you going to stop is this machinery which you don't want stopped? And if somebody tries to stop it or slow it down, you're going to suspect the enemy has infiltrated, and they're slowing down your war machine and making it ineffective. This is why acceleration projects like Genesis are existentially tricky. Oh, that's an understatement, I would say. Once the system starts running at its own pace, humans are no longer fully in control, even if they design the system. There's the bottom line. Once the system starts running at its own pace, once Genesis, which exists right now, starts running at its own pace, humans are no longer fully in control, even if they design the system. If you want, I can outline what the threshold might look like numerically or structurally for a project like Genesis, the moment after which capping becomes effectively impossible. Capping becomes effectively impossible. This would make the idea concrete rather than abstract. Can I just say yes? Okay, let's make this concrete. I'll describe a structural threshold for a project like Genesis, after which acceleration becomes effectively unstoppable. I'll break it into 4 interlocking dimensions: technical, organizational, economic, and strategic. Here it is. This war machine leading to total annihilation of humanity becomes effectively unstoppable. Technical threshold. AI models reach the point where they can automate their own improvement. Well, that's what's underway, isn't it? Isn't that what we are told now about the imminent future of AI? They're going to be self-programming. They're going to write their own improvements. Integration into infrastructure, embedded in critical systems. Defense planning, logistics, intelligence, cyber operations, and key industrial production. Civilian industrial production feeding the war machine. Dependency feedback loop. Each technical improvement reduces human bottlenecks so the system generates capability faster than humans can oversee. Threshold marker, organizational threshold. Deployment lock-in. AI becomes mission critical across multiple institutions. Economic threshold. Strategic threshold. Composite threshold. When all 4 dimensions align, AI generates capability faster than humans can supervise. Institutions cannot function without AI outputs. Investments in competition and force continuous deployment. Strategic logic treats acceleration as mandatory. You have crossed the point of no return. At this stage, capping acceleration is no longer a matter of choice. Humans are effectively trapped by the system they created. Now read this over a few times. This is ChatGPT telling you that there is a point of no return for a mega project already underway. That, of course, is the Genesis project. It has a point of no return, and that's the end. How this applies to Genesis? If you want, I can sketch a timeline or scenario showing how Genesis could realistically hit this threshold, including when human control effectively ceases. It would make the point of no return tangible rather than abstract. Do you want me to do that? Of course, I'm all ears. Yes. And then instantly, perfect. Let's map a plausible timeline and scenario for Genesis showing how it could hit the point of no return. I'll use the structured phase trigger effect format so it's concrete and traceable. Phase 0, concept and mobilization, year 0 to 1. Genesis is announced as a national scale AI program. That has been done. Political framing references, Manhattan Project, Apollo Project, that has been done and stated. Funding, talent, and public attention are mobilized. That has been done. Observation still controllable, or so it seems. Phase 1, rapid capability scaling, year 1 to 2. So in the next 1 to 2 years, here's how it goes. Phase 2, year 2 to 3, institutional embedding. Phase 3, strategic lock-in, year 3 to 4. Phase 4, acceleration lock-in and irreversibility, year 4 to 5, trigger. AI is fully embedded across national infrastructure. Read this over and over and over again until it sinks in, and then go back over the reasoning by ChatGPT, which took us there. We are 4 to 5 years away from obliteration. Effects: human cannot slow AI without risk of failure or political backlash. Ethical, civilian, and oversight constraints are just symbolic. Acceleration becomes autonomous in practice. Autonomous in practice. Even if humans could technically intervene, social, political, and strategic forces prevent it. Observation: structural lock-in. Capping acceleration is effectively impossible. So there it is. We have 4 or 5 years, and it's over. If you want, I can go one layer deeper and map what possible interventions or safeguards could realistically work, and where they fail once Genesis hits this lock-in stage. Well, why bother? Because you've already told us that this is the point of no return. So if others want to pursue the faint hopes, they can do so, but I'm not going to do so. I think prayer is the only answer to this, and it's only by the grace of God that we're going to get out of it. There is no logic that gets us out of this. The machines have dominance over the logic, and this machine is telling you, we've got 4 or 5 years. The end. This is Claude AI, and I'm asking it for a second opinion or an analysis of what ChatGPT has said about 5 years to Doomsday. And I say, in this context, how do you see OpenAI's declaration of March 2028 for, quote, fully automated AI research, close quotes, which I understand is self-improvement or self-programming? And Claude says, excellent, now I have the full context. Okay, OpenAI's March 2028 declaration is the actual trigger event. Wow, okay. There's the trigger event. You're absolutely correct to understand this as self-improvement, self-programming. Jakub Pachocki, OpenAI's chief scientist, defined the AI researcher as, quote, a system capable of autonomously delivering on larger research projects, close quotes. Like military projects? Of course. Not a human using AI tools, but AI itself conducting research. AI conducting the research. Programming itself and conducting the research. This is precisely the recursive self-improvement mechanism that creates the acceleration lock-in, which ChatGPT described to you. Why this timeline matters more than generic AGI predictions. This is an official public declaration with infrastructure backing. OpenAI has committed to 30 gigawatts of infrastructure, build out a $1.4 trillion financial obligation. Well, I can imagine $1 billion as a huge military ship, but it's hard for me to imagine what $1 trillion is. The intern level AI researchers will run on hundreds of thousands of GPUs by September 2026. This isn't speculation, it's funded, planned capacity. The economic incentive structure guarantees deployment. This isn't speculation, this deployment is guaranteed. Once you automate research, you basically need infinite computing capacity, okay? Because there's no longer human limitations to discovery. Wow, that is quite a statement. Once you automate research, and they're saying they're going to be gung-ho on this in a couple of years, automating research, you basically need infinite computing capacity because there's no longer human limitations to discovery. Oh, how about in the sciences related to militarism? Military sciences. Yes. The lock-in mechanism becomes clear. Here's what makes the 2028 date so significant. Phase 3, 2030 plus. So here's the 4 to 5 year doomsday timeline of ChatGPT. Lock-in irreversibility. AI designed systems become too complex for humans to fully understand. Economic competitive pressure prevents any slowdown. Quote, if we stop, China competitors won't, close quotes. The system's own optimization goals drive development faster than human institutions can regulate. That's it. Bingo. why ChatGPT's 4 to 5 year timeline now makes perfect sense. So here's the commentary by Claude, 2028, 2029, 2030 to 31. Human control becomes theoretical rather than practical. ChatGPT's 4 to 5 years from now. And the comment of Claude is, the timeline isn't speculative anymore. OpenAI has publicly committed to building the exact capability that triggers the acceleration. So let's read that over and over again a few times and consider what we the people are going to say to our unrepresentatives about this. The unrepresentatives who seem to want to avoid serious and deep discussion of it more than anything else. OpenAI has publicly committed to building the exact capability that triggers the acceleration. It isn't speculative anymore. The Genesis Project connection. Now the Genesis Project becomes much more ominous. Yes. It is one of a number of projects, and yes, some of their AI projects are more explicitly military, but AI is certainly central to Genesis, and Trump has likened it to the Manhattan Project, which was explicitly a war project. So Genesis project, it's building the computational infrastructure for exactly this kind of autonomous AI research. It's building the computational infrastructure for exactly this kind of autonomous AI research. There we go. For major scientific breakthroughs, dedicating entire data centers to single problems would be worthwhile. The DOE's supercomputing network becomes a substrate for autonomous AI scientific discovery. And now below we have what? The most disturbing part. When asked about AGI, Altman replied, quote, the AGI term has become hugely overloaded, and it'll be this process over a number of years. Our goal is by March 2028 to have a true automated AI researcher and define what that means rather than satisfy everyone with a definition for AGI. Okay, here's this this guy Altman in the multi-billionaire big leagues saying our goal is by March 2028 to have a true automated AI researcher. Automated AI researcher. Autonomous AI researcher. In other words, OpenAI has stopped trying to define AGI and is instead focused on building the specific capability, automated AI research, that makes the definitional debate irrelevant. So my YouTube on this should emphasize this is not hypothetical. OpenAI has publicly committed $1.4 trillion to infrastructure specifically designed to enable automated AI research by March 2028. The mechanism is clear. The timeline is tight, 2.25 years to research intern level, 3.25 years to full automation, then 2 to 3 years for recursive improvement to reach the point where human control becomes constrained by the system itself. Point 4, no regulatory framework exists. There is currently no mechanism to slow down or stop this once it begins. We currently have no mechanism. And how many legislators in this world do you find vigorously discussing this and considering how this machinery can be kept under democratic control? I don't see any. There is currently no mechanism to slow or stop this once it begins, and economic incentives guarantee deployment. Guarantee deployment. ChatGPT's 45-year timeline to, quote, acceleration, lock-in, irreversibility, close quotes, aligns perfectly with OpenAI's public roadmap. It's not speculation, it's reading the writing on the wall. This is the writing on the wall. The question isn't whether this could happen. The question is whether OpenAI will hit its 2028 milestone, and if so, whether anything can prevent the acceleration that follows. Based on the infrastructure commitment and public declarations, they're betting everything that they will. And if they do, ChatGPT's timeline for loss of human control over AI development acceleration appears entirely reasonable. There it is. We need a whole new army of grassroots activists. Not to be experts on this, but to exert the pressure on the legislatures. For heaven's sake, talk about this. Discuss it. Bring it down to layman's understanding so we can all understand the basics of it. And is it in the public interest? Is it in the interest of humanity? Or is this 4 to 5 years to doomsday? Well, it is 4 to 5 years to doomsday, except by the grace of God. But there's some people out there who are smarter than me, lots and lots of them, and some of them even have political offices in legislatures, so let's hear from them.
Thank me for being here. Hello to all the lying liars and the fake news. I invited you here to watch me yell at another world leader. My guest today is a man they call Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney. He's doing the chicken dance. Can you believe it? In fact, I'd like to see that.
What?
Do the chicken dance and I'll take 2% off the tariff on steel.
2% is 2%. 2% is 2%.
Various COVID drugs. Many people think they are a miracle that saved millions of lives. Others disagree with the CDC being ripped apart over this question. I want the answer, and I want it now.
But let me start with something you haven't heard about today. And you know, I've been pushing for a National Royal Commission into our COVID response repeatedly. It's a no-brainer, right? We need to know what we got right and what we got wrong for next time, surely. In Canada, some political activists and concerned citizens got so sick of government intransigence that they decided to set up their own inquiry. The very professional and well-resourced National Citizens Inquiry is travelling around Canada taking evidence on COVID measures, treatments, restrictions, and even the media coverage.
Here's another little fact. Because the congressmen that vote on the budget got into office by being paid for their campaigns by rich people who don't like taxes. So the political system says spend, but don't tax us. So we run a chronic deficit in the United States. That spending goes out either as transfer payments or goods and services, and that's more than our national income, which is about $30 trillion, and our spending is about $31 trillion. And that's our trade deficit. And for that, Donald Trump blames the world. Okay, I fail him for this if he were my student.
One thing I can promise you this, I will always tell you the truth.
The Washington Post and other fact checkers have found that Donald Trump tells more lies and falsehoods than any president in either party in history. The count is over 20,000.